Hey guys, and welcome back to a new episode of On Pause. I'm your host, Karen Williams, and today we have with us Tracel Lockhart. Hey Tracel.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
So I'm Tracel, as we've discovered. I am originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I've lived in Nashville about 13 years. I am an entrepreneur. I own a software management company. We support behavioral health providers nationwide, managing their electronic medical health record systems.
Awesome. So when you say, because for the audience to kind of understand what that means, is when you help them to manage that, what does that entail?
Yeah, so just to make it practical, when you go to a doctor's office or if anyone's going to therapy, most times you are greeted by a receptionist. They take your insurance card and they input this information into a system. So healthcare providers invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into these electronic systems, and then the adaptation to those systems create challenges for their staff. So our team comes in to focus on end user training, developing workflows to make their processes more efficient. 90% of our business is related to their billing needs, so helping them to bill for the services they provide, helping them to ensure they're within compliance with their state regulations, HIPAA compliance and things of that nature to secure and maintain their accreditation. So from a management perspective, it is an array of services that we provide depending on the needs of those providers.
Okay, awesome. Because I think we all have experience going to the doctor and having to fill out either the form. Now I'm going to the doctor, I'm getting iPads to fill out my paperwork. So I love that.
Yes.
And so you help the staff to better understand all of that software that they're dealing with.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And then understand and identify those pain points where their operations may not be the most efficient. And just helping it. A lot of times it turns into or results in some turnover. So our team comes in as the dedicated resources for particular departments. It's not just the training, and we would love to set people up for success and then move on to the next, but there's a lot of times where executives are like, hey, well, you just do it for us.
Oh,
We
wow.
don't
Okay.
have the time, we don't have the resources, and we would rather invest in a team that's experienced, that knows what they're doing, they know the software to just keep us afloat. So
Well, so that's a different stream, but same thing. Okay, that's awesome. So how did you get into this?
So my background is in behavioral health. I started as an autism specialist and child and adolescent therapist here in Nashville. And I remember having those long nights where I'm working with clients and coming home and having to get my progress notes in by 7 p.m. and I'm exhausted. And I had the dog ate my homework experiences too, where I'm like, I've typed all this up and then I wake up 9 o'clock the next morning and it's gone. I'm like, what's going on with this computer?
Yeah.
So I could relate to those struggles that clinicians may face. I didn't understand the business part of it and why my supervisors were so stressed about me billing. I'm like, but now I do. And so I was introduced to software implementations from a mentor, and I'm such a I had a plan. I was like, I'm gonna be a therapist my whole life. I'm gonna get married, have 5 children. And God was like, okay, ma'am, we shall see. So this lady introduced me to software implementations. And I was like, I don't know this stuff. I'm not a computer person. I don't want to do that. That's boring. But being obedient to God, I took that leap and got exposed to learning the business side of the industry, the technology side, because that was about in 2012, 13. So just knowing where the future was going. And so I got into software implementations and project management. I traveled around doing implementations for about 4 or 5 years, and then I was at this place where I had reached my ceiling in corporate America. I had a vision, or I felt like God dropped a vision in me to be more of an advocate for our providers, for healthcare, behavioral health providers. And the company I work for just didn't share that vision until I left. And they developed, departments that do similar to what I do now. But, I presented it to them and they just didn't see it. And so I trusted God and I left corporate America and I moved, I was still living here, but I was helping providers in Atlanta.
Okay.
And I left to help one company. I didn't think I was starting a business. I was just going to be their system administrator, help them on the software, and just, do all the things. I got down there, did not quite work out the way that I envisioned, but it was what God needed. And I tell people all the time, my business was birthed out of a place of hardship. Before I knew it, I was making $30,000 less than what was promised. I literally had an executive apartment that was taken away, and I was all but homeless in Atlanta. Because it was providential, God needed to strip a lot away to see how much I would trust him on this journey. And so, I stayed at that company for about 6 months, and I was just, skin was breaking out, hair was falling out. I was stressed to the max, and I'm like, God, I trusted you. You told me to do this. Why would I? And he was like, just trust me some more. And as soon as, I gave my resignation after 6 months, my mom always told me, don't you leave one job without having another one lined up. And here I am, done left a good corporate job. I'm like, you ain't learned nothing. You ain't doing nothing your mama told you. But as soon as I left, I had other providers that I had worked with at the software company reaching out and saying, hey, we heard you left. Are you willing to help us? I'm like, that was 6 months ago. You just now calling? But it happened in the appropriate time. It really did. So that's how it started. And I thought I would just be an independent contractor, but business really grew very quickly, very fast in that first year, and I needed more help. So that was the birth of initially T-Lock Consulting, and then transforming into T-Lock Solutions.
Awesome. So you went into a few of my questions. So there was one was how did you get those clients? So I know that part of the story, someone reached out 6 months later. So that was the first client. So did they just constantly come to you, or did you, how did you really build that?
So initially, and it's such an industry where, outsourcing, it has a negative connotation regardless of the industry. And so initially I was just, word of mouth, referral based, and there was a slow progression of new clients. Once I decided to really treat it like a business and invest in marketing efforts and things of that nature, I developed or brought people onto the team to help in those regards, because I know what my strong suits are and what they aren't. So that still was a slow progression of increased business. I'm still learning that this industry is, I can communicate the same thing, but if they hear it from a peer, they're more likely to buy in because of that trust and that equity and so 90% of our business has been referral based, and we get providers just based on our service to other providers, and I'm fine with that. I've been fine with that. Of course, I would love for it to be marketing efforts and things of that nature, and our team's still working to develop opportunities to partner with our current clients to borrow their equity a little bit, and build up our reputation in the community a bit more. Okay,
so that's good. And then I did hear you say then you had to bring on help. At what point? Because for a while, were you doing this alone?
Probably for the first 3 months.
Oh, okay.
But not long at all.
So how long have you had T-Lock Solutions?
So we celebrate 6 years on December 16th. I'm like, how old am I? But one day, yes, we will celebrate 6 years this December. December 16th. Yeah. Okay,
so you started the company 6 years ago. You did it by yourself for about 3 months, and then you started to bring on help. So what was the turning point where you was like, okay, I need help?
So the nature of this business, depending on the size of the agency, immediately, that you can't maintain it yourself. There's some accounts, absolutely. But my first provider was a huge agency in Georgia, and they have over 15 locations, and so it's just a massive undertaking for one person. And so I knew other contractors, independent contractors, who worked doing billing and eligibility, prior authorizations, the things that I knew this organization needed most. And so as independent contractors, they're already providing these services to other organizations. So I would reach out and say, hey, I have these opportunities. Are you interested?
Okay.
And it, kind of grown from there.
So are you still using contractors now, or okay?
All of my employees are 1099 contractors, and that's just been the best model for them and for our organization.
Okay, fantastic. So when you are growing this business, first of all, you didn't really know a lot about it until you worked. You worked somewhere first and kind of got an understanding, which I found that a lot that people that we've talked to, they go into corporate America, they get that experience, and then they can go out and branch out on their own. Do you think? Well, of course, I guess so. You wouldn't have done this without going out and doing that. With the experience that you had, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I had my plan and my vision
right.
of what I thought are the career trajectory I thought I was going on. And so even after going into software implementations, I still didn't have the vision of starting a business. So a lot of that was very spirit-led and trusting God and understanding those connections of, okay, this makes sense now, why he sent me there. So I knew I had to do something with it. And once I got the exposure, I loved it. Again, I thought I was going to be a therapist my whole life, but once I started working with software implementations, I loved it. And I think that was, I definitely wouldn't have done it without the exposure, but also without finding a love for it too.
So sometimes we do just have to try the new thing, even though, like you was like, I don't know anything about technology. This is not me, but just taking that chance and that leap. So tell me, what's been the biggest challenge with starting or even growing the company?
Definitely building that brand equity and visibility within such a tight knit community. Behavioral health care, again, is very person-centered, people-oriented, which I absolutely love because that's who I am. But shifting perspectives that it is a business and you have to keep the lights on. And a lot of people in the industry do not like talking about money, but you need it. you know? And you need efficiencies in your processes to ensure that your cash flow continues so that you can pay your staff, so that you can provide these services in the community. It's a full circle, picture and cycle. So messaging that to providers to secure more business and just developing that brand equity and trust. Because so many people have been burned by consultants. And everyone wakes up, I'm a consultant now. You just call yourself one. So and I get it. And so there's just these negative connotations. I think that's been the biggest challenge for us is, setting ourselves apart and not getting kind of looped into that outsourcing and consultant category that others find themselves in.
So you've grown this business. You've got how many employees?
We have 10.
10 employees. And how are you still taking care of Tracel? Do managing the people, you're still, I'm sure, managing customers and clients. How are you taking time and taking care of yourself while you're doing all that?
So, that's a great question. I was actually just on site with a client yesterday. I'm also in the last year of my doctorate program. Oh, wow. So
you got a lot going on.
Right. So, when people ask that, I'm always like, I would love to say that because I have an amazing team now, I'm so grateful. I wouldn't be able to do half of the things that I'm able to do if I did not have them. But I always feel like God adds something else. I'm like, I woke up one day and now you want me to do my doctorate? So again, I want to be obedient. And so adding that, I felt like it was counterproductive to that goal of taking care of Tracel. Building out a team. Because at first, when it's your baby, you're very hesitant to delegate. Oh, yes. And I had to learn that lesson. It probably took me 2.5 years. That was stressful, because I was so protective of the quality of the work, the quality of the brand, what our customers had become accustomed to. I wanted to make sure that whomever hands I put it in deliver the same. And so I struggled with that level of trust. And so then when I got over that hurdle, it created those opportunities for me to focus more on myself. And then, like I said, God added a new element. And it's but you still are responsible for taking care of Tracel. So being intentional about how I start my day, being intentional about my devotionals, my prayers, spending time with him, spending time with myself. I'm not perfect at it. I will say that, it's not as consistent as I would want it to be as far as thinking of myself first, but just the intentionality behind it. So taking my vacations. I don't think I took a vacation the first 2 or 3 years of my business.
Right.
I almost feel like I forgot.
And also we also sometimes feel guilty, like, oh, I'm supposed to be building this business.
Or,
how am I here hanging out?
Or you take it with you.
Right.
There's no days off.
Right.
You're entrepreneurs 24/7.
It is.
And I had to put some systems in place where I had someone say to me once, they were like, you're either going to be the worker bee, or you're going to be the CEO, or you're going to be the owner. You have to decide which one you're going to be, because you have this team now, but then you're on vacation with your laptop in your lap. You have to learn to cut it off. So just being mindful of spending time with others, those that pour into me, those that I pour into, that just those connections that God has allowed me to have that replenishes my spirit, my soul, all those things that I need, because he knew the journey, and he knows the journey, so he put the right people in my life to support that journey. So being mindful to let them let them do that. Right.
It is hard sometimes for women to ask for help. And then not even to ask for, but to accept the help. I understand that completely. But tell me about, you're in a very untraditional business, right? Software management. That's not something you see glorified on social media all the time, right? So talk to us about like going into an industry that is something that we are normally not occupying.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely become one of my passions, because I want, little black and brown girls to be like, oh, I can do that, or find interest in something that, like you said, is not glamorized, and say, I can create a 7-figure business out of that too. So for me, it wasn't the initial thought. Again, it was just, it aligned with my experience and then what I became passionate about. So showing up in those spaces, of course, you have to be mindful of the fact that everyone may not look like you.
Right.
And there's a fine line and balance you have to find with not appearing to this or to that, or and so at a point, honestly, I show up as myself. That's all I can do, and the people who receive me are the people I'm supposed to work with. Like,
exactly.
I just believe that God connects you with who you're supposed to be connected with. And so it's been an interesting journey, and not more so within the industry, but to your point, more so with the community, or even my friends. They're always like, I love to shout you out or share what you do, but I don't know what you do. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I'm like, how can I make it any more simple? But I get it. But that's a bigger conversation to me, is the fact that our minds, mental health and therapy became such a bandwagon that people jumped on at a certain point, and still kind of on. But it's not a part of the normal conversation enough, where when I say I work with behavioral health providers, that it clicks for you that, a therapy office or a counselor, or, because it's not a part of the normal conversation still to me. So people's eyes glass over when you start talking about software, and you have to give those, okay, so when you walk into an office, you hand your insurance card.
Yeah, right.
And you don't want to feel like you're being condescending or in any way, but you do have to find creative ways to talk about it and normalize it and glamorize it to a point, but there's only so much you can do with that. So
how important is therapy in the entrepreneur journey?
Well, to me, therapy is important in any life journey. Okay. One of the benefits of I moved here in 2011 to get my master's at Lipscomb. And a part of that program, it was a counseling program, we had to go through therapy. And I think that was just phenomenal of a requirement, because doing that deep inner work is necessary for whatever path that you're getting ready to go on. But to me, especially that entrepreneurial journey, because it is a lonely road.
It is.
And dealing with those bouts and feelings of isolation and feeling misunderstood and feeling unsupported or whatever the case may be, it can be an inner thing that you need to address and get to the root of. And then also just making that time for yourself to have that unbiased opinion or perspective to say the things that you may not feel comfortable or be able to say to those who love you or who are more connected with you, who may not be as honest and transparent, not because they don't want to be or try not to be, but they care about your feelings and want to handle you a little bit more delicately sometimes. And so having that advocate and that resource who can hold you accountable, you know, but also listen to you, that safe space to admit your fears as an entrepreneur, the safe space to say, like, I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. Because while we have these communities and these organizations that say you can say those things, you know, there's still some side eyes sometimes when you say those things.
Right.
And so, like, I that's one of my, I guess, prayers and desires and hope that we do get to those places of authenticity truly in some of the organizations that I've seen or visited or tried to find my space within. And I'm like, you know, I don't know that we really can be as truly authentic to ourselves as we, you know, would want to be. But again, therapy plays a role in that too. You building up that identity within yourself to say, I'm going to show up as me no matter what.
One thing I can say is that I was just going through the journey of entrepreneurship and being fearful of doing certain things or posting certain stuff or talking about the business or celebrating the milestones that we hit. It was due to traumatic things that happened in my past that led and let me say this, trauma doesn't have to be like somebody did something to you, you know, touched, hurt or something like that. It could just be something that somebody said. I can remember when I was younger, like people would be like, oh, she's so much. Because I've always been like, I'm super excited. I'm always happy. I always want to have a good time. I want to play games with my friends. Like I am the one that likes to have a lot of fun. So I would always get from like certain people like, oh, she do too much. Oh, she this and that. Oh, you know, so then it brings this feeling on you of, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't share so much, or maybe I shouldn't say that, or maybe I shouldn't do this because I don't want people to feel away. I want them to want to be around me. I want them to want to have good. And those things, even though they happened 20 years ago, still play a part in how I think or how I move and how I do things. And I think therapy would definitely be good to kind of talk to somebody to kind of give you coping mechanisms or whatnot to deal with that and kind of break free from that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Those seeds that get planted take root, you know, and especially when they're watered by other, you know, comments that may support what that seed was, or we water them ourselves. And so, one of the things I think that's very common in entrepreneurship is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And that was something that I had to work through with my therapist because, you know, while I know I'm intelligent or I'm talented, you know, and I hear other people say it, sometimes I show up and I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Like, you know, that it creeps in. It's funny you brought up, you know, trauma. My doctorate, my dissertation is on the impact of adverse childhood experiences in leadership competencies.
Wow.
So evaluating how those childhood traumas impact our social, emotional, interpersonal competencies in leadership. Because we've all experienced like that horrible boss or the person that just seems like they're always having a bad day. Or we experience that resilient, that person who got it out the mud and now they're multi-million because of whatever, potentially because of whatever experience they may have had in their childhood that, you know, either created grit and grind or toxicity. So yeah, I'm at the beginning stages of that study, and I'm really interested to see because I do think, you know, just my own experiences is why I've gone so hard in life. You know, is why I've I didn't have the luxury to not, you know, succeed. So
good. Oh, I love that conversation. Yeah. What did I do with my cards? Okay. So tell me, Tracel, what is what's next? There's something you're planning on doing next?
I'm waiting for God to answer that. Everyone.
So he put you on assignment and didn't give you the whole.
And that's how it works. And I've learned to just go with that because
Yes.
it's worked out. Thus far.
Yes.
So, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely leadership has always been, I believe, the calling on my life, and so whatever capacity that he can use me in.
Speaking to little children about other.
Absolutely.
Speaking and whatnot, yeah.
And so, or even working at the collegiate level. So, I feel like the business is essentially to a place where it's growing. We have the right resources in place. The future there is to continue to grow, expand, support more providers. But I do think God will be using me in a different capacity once I complete this degree. Setting up multiple other strands of income. So
yeah, I know it'll be like right after you get your degree. Here comes the ring on the phone. I'm like, right on time.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're gonna pull a card.
Okay.
And this is a surprise. And it's always a surprise.
Okay.
And you pull a card, any card, and you just read it to yourself, and then you can read it out loud.
Okay. Let's see.
What you get?
So it says, if your life right now was a book, what would the title be?
Oh, I like that.
What would the title be?
That's a thinker.
Let's see. Oh, I would go with. There's a few in my mind.
Oh, you got a few.
I would say, I honestly would go with the breakthrough.
The breakthrough. Tell me why. Tell me why the breakthrough.
That has been in my spirit a lot lately of just acknowledging and appreciating the breakthroughs that I feel like I've come to as a result of breakdowns and breakups, breaking of things to be put back together.
Yes.
And just the beauty in that process that sometimes we don't appreciate or we don't stop to appreciate because it's not fun. No one likes the breaking of anything, but just the breakthrough that can come from that. And what I feel like I've experienced just in personal experiences in life, business experiences, like just breaking through.
I love that. Breakthrough. So when you're thinking about breakthrough and all the things from the last 6 years or even before that, as you went through all these different trials and jobs and going into a whole new industry, growing a team, what has been your biggest accomplishment from like that whole journey? So many.
Well, and because I would say maybe it's a collective accomplishment for me is sustainability.
Okay.
Looking up and being able to say 6 years. I think at one time, I don't know the statistic now, but like the success of a small business was reaching the 5-year mark.
Yes.
That may still be true. I'm not sure. So just being able just sustainability, and again, not just in business but myself, because there's nights and days where I'm crying and I'm like, God, I did not sign up for this. The not feeling supported or understood, or that isolation and loneliness, being in an industry that you have to try to glamorize or get people to support because they don't understand. And so some of those things were a little disheartening, especially from people that are close to you. It's like, you shouldn't have to understand it to support me, but I get it. So that sustainability through the isolation or being in that space where, you felt like you were in a league of your own. And, but understanding the beauty that came with that. So I think that is more of a personal accomplishment. of course, growing the business, having an amazing team, and knowing where it's going to go and where God is taking us is an accomplishment as well. But I think if I'm looking overall, just the sustainability of me as a woman, as a child of God, and as a business owner.
Thank you. So I was listening to you and you said sustainability. So what do you think has helped you sustain the business through these 6 years? Like, what has been the thing? Has it been the growth of the team? Or has it been like consistent customers or clients? Or
yeah, a combination of both, for sure. Definitely the growth of my team. They are amazing. They're just as passionate about what we do and supportive of the company, and our providers, them trusting us with such a important part of their operations. So them continuing, most of our providers are all that I started with 6 years ago are still with us today.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
wow.
So and the ones that are newer, are 2-3 years in. So those long-term engagements and commitment to us supporting and providing service, again, speaks to, I believe, the quality of our services, the relationships that we're able to build. I'm finding to be key. That's important. Providers knowing that we're their advocates and that they can depend on us. So that has definitely sustained the organization.
Awesome. One last question. Purpose. So, when we think about purpose, and I think we have different purposes. Like as chapters and seasons in our lives change, there are different purposes, I believe. Do you feel like you are in the purpose of this moment 6 years in, or are you feeling like you're still, is it time for a change, or how are you feeling as far as like your purpose in your business or in life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely feel like I have been in my purpose and been obedient to God's will for my life and following his instructions in starting the business, maintaining it, sustaining it. But I do feel like the purpose is shifting, and I don't know in what direction. The business will be maintained, the business will remain, but I do feel like there's something deeper that God is requiring me to do with just me as a person, as a woman, as someone who's been on this journey. And a lot of people say you're just too modest, or you're too humble, because I don't share my story often, and it's not out of the lack of desire to. It's just I've been busy, or I've made the time to. And so I do think God is shifting my purpose as an entrepreneur, as he maintains and sustains and grows the business, ushering me into different arenas such as your podcast, to be able to give a voice to this journey, but also from a spiritual perspective of trusting God, honoring him with what you're doing. And I think that's becoming the bigger purpose.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tracel. Well, that is it. Do you have anything that's going on that you want to announce or talk about?
At this time, it's the end of the year, so we are trying to just celebrate our providers, celebrate our team. I'm trying to just focus on finishing this dissertation. So at the moment, there are no big things that we're focused on right now. We'll be definitely attending some conferences and leadership gatherings next year. So just follow our social media, TM Solutions, or my personal TM Lockhart, for any updates.
And we'll drop all that information in the show notes. Well, again, I appreciate you for stopping by and sharing this time with us today. So that's it for this episode. Catch you on the next one.
All right, bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure to check the show notes to learn more about connecting with our guests. Also, if you haven't done so already, join our Bold in Business community at boldinbusiness.co.